Hi everyone, it's James here. Thank you for tuning in. Going to do a very special video today, one I've been meaning to do for a long time. This is going to be my tribute to a very special record shop. It's called Cob Records and it is in West Wales in a place called Porthmadog. And this is a place which I used to go to as a kid, as a child. My parents' friends had a caravan in a caravan site called Green Acres in Porthmadog, and we would go there often at Whitsun in the springtime, but also in the summer as well. I think we started going there probably in the late 1970s, and we carried on going there all through the 80s into the 90s. And it was a great place to be. It was a great place to go on holiday. The weather could be a little bit iffy. I've got quite a lot of memories of rather wet holidays there, but also some really nice weather too. You know, we used to play in the sand dunes and just have a great time. And there was a shop, a record shop in the town called Cob Records. Now, Cob Records, the reason it's called Cob is that there's a kind of bridge that crosses a kind of estuary, really, that crosses the sands and goes into the town. And this is called the Cob. It's a very long, narrow road, and often there'd be queues on this road, you know. But as you queue to go into the town, you would go past the record shop, which was just kind of as the bridge came to an end. It's just there. It's kind of in the ground floor of just a house, really, you know. And it's been there. I think it was founded in 1967. And there were actually two branches of Cob Records. One was the one that I knew in Porthmadog, and the other one was in Bangor, just a bit further up the coast. Bangor being the place where the Beatles went, you know, in 1967, was it, to see the Maharishi? And strangely enough, I think it was in 1967 that Cob Records was founded. And it's just a great shop. It hasn't really changed in all the years that I've been going there. You know, it still has the same yellow, record dividers, and most of the same staff are there. You know, it's just a great kind of. It's like a kind of open plan ground floor of a house, but just packed full of records. And every time we used to go there on holiday, I would go to the shop, and it's kind of where I cut my teeth, really. You know, in the sense of learning to actually be a record buyer or a record digger. It's where I learnt my digging skills. You know, I used to sort of hunt around for certain records there, but I also used to pick up a lot of impulse purchases. And as I got older and kind of got more and more into music, particularly in my teens, Cob Records was really the place where I learned to be curious about records. You know, for a long time when I was much younger, I would only look through the certain sections, you know, of the band and artists that I knew, you know, people like Wings and Pink Floyd and that kind of thing. And I did pick up a lot of, you know, good things. But as time wore on, I kind of got those records into my collection. I would start to look, you know, along the racks to see what else was there. And that's how I gradually, learned about so many bands and artists. And what I wanted to show you today, actually, was just a selection of records that I bought there over the years. And hopefully what you'll see is that these are kind of, a lot of these are record collection staples, but they're also kind of cornerstones of my own particular collection. A lot of records by artists that I came to love and collect and really know, really important records in, you know, the canon, but also records which meant a lot to me and, you know, came to define who I was as a music fan and as a record buyer. So before we start, I just want to show you the label which is on most of these records. It is the Cob Records label, and it just looks like this. It's always been exactly the same. £2.95 for the Talking Heads Remain in Light album. And here is one great example, you know, I mean, just such an important record for me, and the Talking Heads are such a kind of great band, and you know, I learnt about them from Cob Records, and most of the records that I bought from there still have this sticker on, and I'm only going to show you the ones that do still have the sticker. I'm not going to show you because there are a fair few records I have kind of lost the sticker, including some really kind of big special ones that I really wanted to show. For example, Exile on Main Street, which I'm going to show you actually. Even though the label is not on that, I'm going to get it. Here we go. I'm going to have to show this because, you know, This is an example of just one of those kind of monster albums, and that was bought from Cob Records. The sticker is no longer there. This was back in the 90s. I'd started learning about the Stones, you know, reading about them. And I've got such strong memories of buying this record on that particular holiday. And it was always really frustrating because we used to stay in this caravan and there was no record player in the caravan, you know, so I'd have to wait until we got back home to where we lived, you know, a bit kind of further inland. And I've got such a strong memory of listening to this record for the first time when I got back to my parents' house on my dad's hi-fi and just being totally, you know, bamboozled by it. I didn't know what to make of it at all. But yeah, Cob Records, you know, gave me that, you know, into my collection. So that's just one example, you know, just the amazing selection of music that I bought there over the years. Okay, so I'm going to go quite fast. I'm going to whiz through and I'm going to show you all the records that I can find in my collection that still have the little yellow sticker. Okay, so here we go. So Whitesnake 87. I would have bought that probably in about 1988. I've got a memory of that particular holiday. It was just when I was getting into metal. We have Wizard Brew. So just keep noting the sticker. Roy Wood's Band, After the Move, fantastic stuff. Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking by Roger Waters. Van Halen 2, this would have been bought at about the same time as the Whitesnake one, might even have been the same holiday actually. I know I was kind of 16 at the time and I was just kind of starting to get into metal and exploring that kind of stuff, so Van Halen 2 was a big record for me when I was about 17. Okay, another absolute cornerstone. First Steely Dan record I ever owned, and the first one I ever bought. Let's have a look at the price. £3.25, Steely Dan. Ringo, the Ringo album. You know, I should stress that, you know, these records, each one of these, it was the first time I'd kind of ever owned them. So each one of these is, you know, it's my first copy, and it's the first time I actually ever heard that record. So that was actually £4.95, a little bit more expensive for Ringo. They're always reasonably priced, you know, and as far as I know they still are. I've not been back for a while. I need to do another return trip. Okay, we have £3.95 for Todd Rundgren, A Wizard, a True Star. Fantastic cover on that one. And then the next one is probably going to be, yeah, Something Anything by Todd Rundgren. That one, £5.95 actually. These, I would have bought these probably in the 1990s, so I was a kind of adult by then, you know. I mean, I've carried on going to the shop into my adulthood. I've not been there for a while, but I probably started there. The first time I went there, I would have been maybe 7 years old, and the last time I went there was maybe 5 years ago when I was, you know, 40, whatever it was, 42. You know, Jimmy Reed, the blues. This would have been probably in the 1990s again. That's when I was getting into the blues, and they had a good blues selection. That was £4.95. That would have been the first time I owned a Jimmy Reed record. A few of these are quite surprising. You know, I had no idea that I bought the final cut from Cobb, but I did. And this was £3.65. I did actually already own this on cassette. I bought that on cassette in about 1983. But then I bought the record at some point after that. Relics. Now that's my that's my handiwork, I'm afraid. I coloured that in, and this was the grand total of 95p. And also, I can remember buying this. This is my first and to date only copy of Animals. First time I ever heard the record. Now this would have been probably in about 1988. I'm fairly certain I was about 17 when I bought this. £2.95. All these records are in really great condition as well. That was the thing about Cob Records. You never bought one that was dirty or crackly. You know, they were always decent, second hand, but they were always, you know, really good. So Animals by the Floyd, and then a whole run of albums by the Move. I discovered the Move in Cob Records, and there's kind of, you know, various comps. That was £1.75. This would have been in, again, the late 80s. That's when I first cottoned on to Roy Wood and the Move. Another one. I can't quite see the price. I think it's £1.25 for that one. Marvellous. And this was the first Move record I ever actually owned or saw. It was a kind of free record from the Reader's Digest. It's got the Move on one side and the tremolos on the back, and that is £1.25. one of my favourite ever bands when I was a kid. This is the alternative cover of the Motors, approved by the Motors. They had to reshoot the cover because they were too ugly on the cover, and Virgin Records decided it was harming sales, so they had to go and do a reshoot. That was $1.95. Cob Records always had a good jazz section, and this is a record that I bought there. I thought I heard Buddy Bolden say Jelly Roll Morton. Now this would have been probably in the mid 1990s. I would have bought this because I'd got into Dr. John and was reading you know, his kind of life story and learning about New Orleans jazz and all that kind of stuff. We have an absolute classic, pop classic from Down Under, Men at Work, Cargo. £2.25. Again, I'd completely forgotten, but Back to the Egg by Wings, purchased from Cobb for the princely sum of £1.95. And again, yeah, Wings at the Speed of Sound, £2.25. No idea when I would have bought those two. Probably on vinyl in the 90s, or maybe in the mid 80s actually. Yeah, I'd completely forgotten that I bought this one from Cob Records, but I did. £2.25 for a really, really nice copy of Red Rose Speedway. I mean, I'll just quickly show you. I mean, this is the kind of condition that these records were always in. You know, they were always beautiful. Denny Lane's solo album, Our Lane, that was $1.95. Okay, yeah, so this would have been the first time I ever heard Little Richard. 2-record set, bought for £2.75. Great old favourite. I mentioned Dr. John before, so this is his album In the Right Place. Really lovely condition on this one, $5.95. Discipline, $4.95. Back to the blues again. Elmore James collection, One Way Out. So again, that would have been bought in the mid 1990s when I was learning about the blues. £3.95 for I think this is a comp actually, a Fleetwood Mac compilation. Wasn't the first Fleetwood Mac record I had. I bought another one already, but this one was from Cobb. Electric Light Orchestra, £2.25. I actually bought most of my ELO records from Cob Records when I was probably about 14 or 15. I became a really big fan of Jeff Lynne and ELO when I was at high school, and I patiently kind of built up the collection, not just ELO but the Move and Wizard, you know, over the course of maybe 2 years. Each time I'd go back to Cob Records, I'd find another record, and it was a kind of patience building exercise. Again, I'd completely forgotten, but yeah, I mean, you can kind of see how kind of mind-blowingly enormous these records are. This was Blonde on Blonde, bought for $7.95 from Cobb. Probably in my 20s at this point. I didn't really get into Dylan until kind of my mid-20s, so that's my copy of that. Oops, another Dr. John. I should have put that with the other. That's his solo album, The Brightest Smile in Town. That was $5.95. There's the Good Doctor, Mac Rebenak. Thomas Dolby, The Flat Earth, £2.95. That would have been bought in the early to mid 90s when I was getting heavily into Dolby. Bit of jazz again. Sorry about the glare. Miles Davis, Nefertiti. There's the big guy. £2.90 for a nice copy of that. A few Costello records. We've got Imperial Bedroom, bought for £3.95. And we've got Armed Forces, again, £3.95. This was a record that blew my mind when I found it, because I had no idea that the Buggles even had a second album. I'd loved their first album, which came out I think in 1980, and I found this one. It was probably in about 1980, I think it was 1986, and there's a long story for why I can remember that it was 86, but I'm not going to bore you with it. But I found this one, Adventures in Modern Recording, and that was really cheap. That was £1.95, and I mean, that's a really hard record to find now, and it was in lovely condition. Really great record as well, great kind of, electro pop. So you can see the collection cornerstones, or the centerpieces, just keep on coming. That's my copy of Aladdin Sane. Can't quite see the price there, but it wouldn't have been very much. That's a reissue, actually, a non-gatefold reissue. Back to the blues again, the Great Blues Men. In my latest finds video, I showed volume 2 of this, which I found quite recently in Lancaster. But this one I bought years and years ago, you know, back in the 90s. £3.95. A great selection of people on that. Now I can remember buying this one. It was when I went on holiday with my friends, and we booked the caravan. This was about mid-1990s, and this is one of the records that I bought in the shop. I took all my friends to the shop, you know, and said, you know, you've got to come and see this shop. And it was back in the day when people were still reasonably interested in buying records. So my friends kind of, you know, went along with me, and we all bought stuff. And we came back to the caravan, and for some reason that year there was a little record player in the caravan. So maybe one of us brought it with us, I can't quite remember, but I do distinctly remember playing cards or Scrabble or something in the living room of the caravan with the rain coming down outside, and we had this on. So that's the Best of Blondie. That contains the poster, which I'm not going to get out now, but you can imagine it. The George Harrison, Somewhere in England, £3.25. And again, another cornerstone, a rock classic, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, bought for £5.95. Can't quite remember when, probably in the mid-90s again. Peter Gabriel solo album, £2.95. For £3.95. I would have bought that in the 90s, again when I was learning about the blues. I think I learnt about him through reading maybe a Keith Richards biography, so I got into him. I got into his drummer as well. It's Jobo Sparks, great drummer, great early R&B drummer. AC/DC Back in Black, which I already owned on cassette. I bought my copy of that from Cobb for £2.75. And we'll finish with Carole King, Tapestry, non-gatefold version, I think, £3.45. Now I know for a fact that there's lots of other records in my collection that came from Cobb. It's just that the stickers have come off, which means I can't quite remember with 100% certainty whether they are from the shop or not. But I thought I would dig out all the ones that did have the price sticker on, so you could see, you know, the extent to which, you know, large chunks of my collection come from that shop. And I quite like the fact that nearly all the records are these kind of, you know, big collection staples. So it kind of feels like there was one shop which helped me to, you know, build the foundation for my record collection, and I'm so pleased that it's still there. You know, the one in Bangor closed down many years ago now, but the one in Porthmadog, as far as I'm aware, is still going strong, and they do a kind of, you know, mail order thing. So I'll put a link down below to their website, and hopefully if I've done my job right, I'll have cut in some footage so you can see the shop and, you know, see the surrounding area. And yeah, that's it. That's my little tribute. Cob Records in West Wales, and the records that I bought from there over the years. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. Take care. See you soon. Bye bye.